But let's move on to the 5 takeaways and see what 5 things we can take away from the game yesterday. Number 1 is away concerns.
Yeah, and look, the away form is what we've been talking about in our match review, and just breaking down the numbers. 2 away wins since October. Spurs actually, the 2 away wins have come, 2-0 away win against Forest and a 4-0 away win against Villa. We actually do sit 5th in the overall away points in the Premier League, but 55% of our away total, 13 of our 24 points came in the first 10 games of the season. So we've only had 9 points since game week 10. Now we're in game week 31. So the past 20 game weeks, only 9 of our points away from home have come in that period. So definitely something we are struggling with away from home. And it's maybe it's just, I don't know what it's a case of, but at the moment we can't seem to assert ourselves away from home in the same way we do at home.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating. It's really concerning. It's something that I've been worried about for quite some time. And it's not just like Spurs not being able to play their football, but in a few games we've just been totally embarrassed, against teams that shouldn't be happening against. Yeah, Newcastle, it shouldn't be happening against that Newcastle team, a completely depleted Newcastle team. I think the majority of Spurs fans, when they looked at the 2 lineups, thinking, all right, this Newcastle team, we can get at them today. Jacob Murphy at fullback and a midfield which is nowhere near close to their strongest midfield, and Spurs had their strongest team on. But it's not just that. Brighton away, we got completely embarrassed. I think we were 4-0 down at some stage in that game when we did a late rally and scored 2 goals. And that Fulham game just a few weeks ago, completely embarrassed in that game as well. So it is a kind of theme that's happening with Spurs now. And Ange needs to sort it out, because I don't know what's happened from the first 10 games of the season to now. I know we've had loads of injuries and not enough consistency in terms of the players that we've been able to put on the pitch. But when you have your first choice out like that, you can't be getting embarrassed like the way we are. We're so easy to carve open chances. 1 ball down the middle of the park and that's it. They're through on goal. And that should never be the case. Defending set pieces as well, which was spoken about many a time, I'm sure we'll get into in a minute. But there are just so many worrying signs at the moment with Spurs, particularly away from home, that we need to sort out as soon as possible. Yeah,
away form is big concern.
Next up, we are going to look at being exposed in the transition.
Yeah, and yesterday Newcastle is crazy. How little they had the ball and how much they were able to hurt us. They only completed 123 passes on the day, which is like, we complete that usually in like one half of football, let alone a whole game of football. And they had 27% possession, but despite all the, how little they had of the ball, they created 2.88 XG. They had 5 big chances on the day. Anthony Gordon actually on the ball created 8 chances. He had 8 key passes on the day, so he completely destroyed us on the transition. And you look at that first goal and the third goal, it's literally, we lose the ball and it's 1 long pass from Bruno Guimaraes and they're in on goal. And we got completely destroyed in the transition yesterday, and it's something that's been a bit of an issue. That what I would say is especially games at home when we play teams who don't have the forward line that Newcastle have, we've been able to cope with it, maybe restrict teams to 1 or 2 transitions per game. But when we played the quality we did yesterday, we got hit just countless amount of times, and it was a massive issue.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, like I've said all stream, the defensive shape, the defensive personnel, nowhere near good enough. You can't just have 1 ball over the top to just cut us open every single time. And fine, if it happens once, you can say, all right, it's just once. But it's happening time and time again. And if the defenders can't work it out, the manager's got to work it out and figure ways how to combat the issue. But no one seemed to figure out any sort of reason or rhyme of how to combat these kind of balls over the top. And look, you got to say, Anthony Gordon put in an unbelievable performance yesterday. He really did. Bruno Guimaraes as well, who I thought was brilliant on the day. Both of them just completely dominated us. But we had no answers whatsoever to these kind of moments, how to combat these issues. And that's what's most concerning for me.
Yeah, and it's not something that's new. Like, obviously, we've seen that we've struggled in transition a lot this season. It's not something that's like completely new to us, and we're not doing anything to rectify it. So that is, maybe it's something that we'll just have to assess at the end of the season. We're going to keep playing the same way from now to the end, and we'll have to assess it at the end. Maybe that's how Ange's looking at it. But at the moment, it just seems that we're just doing the same thing every week, and teams are, especially good teams with good forward players at Newcastle, are exploiting it.
Let's go on to number 3, and that is Spurs stifled.
Yeah, and I think this as well is another big reason why we're so poor at the back, is because going forward, especially when we're playing against a low block like Newcastle, who are basically their aim of the game was to stifle Tottenham and hit us very quickly, we couldn't create anything. We could not create any sort of opportunities, especially after the first 20 minutes. And Timo Werner obviously had our 3 opportunities, but we had 0.77 XG on the day, 0.61 of it created in the first 16 minutes of the game. And I think that tells a story about how we had a flurry of chances early on, and then we were completely stifled by a very depleted Newcastle team, and it ended up being our worst XG performance of the season, which goes to show how little we did create. And, you know, looking at that lineup and looking at Newcastle's how they've defended all season, you would have thought you'd be licking your lips a bit, probably thinking we can really go at this team and create chances, and it was a complete opposite. Not only could we not go at them, it was we created less than we ever have, and I can't really put your finger on why that was the case.
Yeah, I think it was because standards and levels completely dropped off, and heads completely dropped after those first 2 goals, because we were creating chances before those first 2 goals, and after those 2 goals, we didn't create anything, absolutely nothing. So it was that kind of thing that we've seen with Spurs over the past 3, 4, 5 seasons, where something goes wrong in a game, heads completely drop, and we can't seem to recover from those situations. That's exactly what we saw yesterday on that St James's Park pitch. And I was listening to the build-up in the game yesterday with Peter Crouch and Rio Ferdinand and people like that. They were talking in the build-up to the game, saying this is going to be such a great game of football. There's going to be so many goals at either end. And then after the game, they were saying, well, we got one of it right, saying it's going to be a great game of football with loads of goals. But what we didn't get right is how poor Spurs were going to be on the day. And it's just so disheartening to think, like, we're near the end of the first year of Ange Postecoglou, and these kind of issues are just still there, where things go wrong in a game and we just can't recover from it. We just let the standards completely slip, completely, like from number 1 all the way to number 11 on that football pitch yesterday. Not one of them were good enough to play a game of Premier League football at that level.
Yeah, it was absolute shambles.
Let's move on to number 4, and that is more set-piece woes.
And no surprise here. Obviously, we conceded from 1 corner yesterday, and it could have been a lot more than that. I think we conceded 16 corners on the day. And I think that was also definitely a tactic for Newcastle. If they couldn't create a chance, just win a corner, and you'll probably create a chance from it. And that, because as we said, Vicario actually didn't have too many saves. It wasn't about creating chances for them. It was about creating opportunities from corners, and that happened so often. They tried to get as many corners as possible. We obliged willingly, and we gave them 16. I think they had 10 opportunities from corners yesterday, I counted, and then obviously they got the goal near the end as well with the header from Fabian Schär. It was a goal that was literally coming throughout the whole game, considering how many chances we conceded from corners. And that's now 6 games of the last 11. 6 of the last 11 we've conceded goals from corners now. And you can't even say it cost us yesterday because it was the 4th goal of 3, but it's clearly something that every game we are struggling with, and every single time we get a corner, it's like we're giving teams free chances at the moment. It's like it's something that we've pointed out for so long, and yet Spurs have no answer for defending corners at the moment.
Yeah.
And Ange has to take responsibility for that because he doesn't have a set-piece coach.
Massive responsibility. You know, we had Gianni Vio not long ago, and when he came in, you saw a clear uptick in the way we were handling our set-pieces, and he's gone. It seems like it's worse than ever. It really is. And we brought up a panel show saying Spurs need a set-piece coach, and we desperately need that set-piece coach now. And if he doesn't bring one in for next season, then I really fear for us next season as well in terms of these kind of aspects. But it was just embarrassing. It really was embarrassing. Every single corner Not one man, not one Spurs player picking up any Newcastle. It was like you get a free roam in our box in any sort of set piece. I was like, it's worse than schoolboy stuff. Like you're taught in schoolboy playing football when you're, even in school, never mind academies and stuff like that. When you're in school, to pick up a man. Like, why can't they pick up a man? It's ridiculous.
They can't get the first head on any of them. And the goal they scored, when Shah heads it, he's just so free. Like, there's no one around him. I think Decky was actually the one picking him up, and he chased him back. But he doesn't challenge him. He doesn't jump. He just runs at him, and that's it. And Shah just has a free header, and it was so simple.
Yeah. And last but not least, out the top four.
Yeah, and that defeat meant that even though Villa didn't play, they went above us yesterday because of how bad the defeat was. We had the goal difference advantage going into this. The 4-0 defeat means that Villa now have a goal difference advantage. And actually, if you look at the fixtures now, obviously Villa play Arsenal today. We'll see how they get on in that game if they end up losing. If they do lose, obviously we'll go back into the top four. If they get any result, then we will be ending the weekend in fifth, and it's getting quite, in terms of getting that last Champions League spot, it now is getting a lot trickier because the games we got left were Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Chelsea away as well. Very difficult avenues to get points. And then also if you're looking for that fifth place to be Champions League, obviously that's looking a bit trickier as well, with Bayern doing well, Leverkusen beating West Ham, Liverpool looking like they're heading out of Europe as well. So it is getting a bit, it's all after like last week or 2 weeks ago, it looked like Champions League was looking pretty assured. Now it's very much up in the air at the moment.
You cast your mind back to when we beat Aston Villa 4-0. It seems a world away now when we beat Aston Villa 4-0. And after that game, everyone was like, yes, and top four is nailed on. It's not even an issue. And now you're looking at it being like, yeah,
it's difficult.
It's very difficult, and
not impossible, but difficult.
Of course, it's not impossible because you're looking at Aston Villa and the way they're playing at the moment. It's not exactly they're playing amazingly. They're dropping points. They seem to be dropping points every week as well. But when you're looking at the two fixtures and the two teams, one has a clear harder run than the other team. And look, I've said it that I'm not too bothered if we make it or not. Obviously, it'll be nice to play Champions League football and hear that music again in the stadium. But I'm just looking at pure progression for next season in terms of getting better players in to suit the system. Just increasing the kind of, if we have a sort of injury problems next season, we don't drop the quality too much like we saw this season. It was like essentially don't have Emerson and Davies at the two centre-backs if Van der Ven and Romero get injured. So I want to see clear signs of progression next season. If that comes with or without Champions League, I'm not too bothered. And the fifth spot, like you said, that's very much up in the air. Like a week ago, it seemed like 85% that the England were going to get that spot. And now with all these teams, Liverpool losing 3-0 to Atalanta at home, West Ham losing 2-0 to Leverkusen, Arsenal and Bayern Munich, I mean, it's very up in the air. But if Aston Villa and Man City go on and win the two tournaments, surely England will get it.
It's still 50-50. Obviously, Leverkusen could win the Europa League, so obviously that plays a part. Depends how far Bayern go. Even if Arsenal go out, West Ham go out, Liverpool go out, it's still close. It's still not certain who's going to get it. But as you say, it's been a big swing the other way. It was a good chance that England were going to get it. Now it's like, it's still about, I think Opta had it as 57% England are going to get it. So it's still favourites to get it, but it was like over 70% a week
let's
ago.
see what it's like after the second legs this week.
I wonder, in terms of like, let's say if we presume Villa lose tonight, like obviously we got Burnley and Sheffield United still to play. Let's say we get 6 points. Would that be enough? Well, because I'm looking at Villa's fixtures. They got still in Europe if they beat Lille. That is, they got Bournemouth at home, Chelsea at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, and Palace away. Would 6 points be enough to finish above them, do you reckon?
It would be very tight.
It would be very tight, but I don't see them winning too many of those games.
So what you're saying, Bournemouth at home.
Yeah, no guarantee. Like, they're in good form. Chelsea at home, they lost them in the FA Cup. Brighton away is a very tough game.
Points to Liverpool and Brighton.
Then,
but you never know. The way things are going with Liverpool at the moment, they could be out of the title race by then.
They are losing at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. 6 points, I wouldn't completely rule out top four just with 6 points.
I wouldn't say it's guaranteed either.
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not guaranteed. I'm just saying, like, in my mind, even if we lose those 3 games, to Liverpool, City, and Arsenal, is it like, does that mean it's no chance we get top 4. I'm just looking at it thinking, well,
I'm
even if we
saying-
lose
to
those
say
3,
that we
no
get 6
guarantee.
points from now until the end of the season, and,
But it would be and we
and
get
to top 4.
Yeah, it
I
would
mean,
be.
you got to have the eternal optimist's hat on to say that.
Yeah, you do. I'm just looking at the fixtures saying it's not completely impossible. You only get 6 points because I'm not definitely like, if you look at Tottenham's fixtures, Burnley, Sheffield United, that's 6 points there. I'm looking at their fixtures. I'm not definitely seeing 6 points there. Not 100%.
9 points, I would say.
9. What for who?
Spurs.
And Arsenal when we beat Arsenal as well.
Well, you got to hope that we go to Stamford Bridge and get the 3 points.
We never win there. We never bloody win there. That's the thing. And we saw with Newcastle, we never win there as well. So, anyway.
All right, well, that is our 5 takeaways from the game yesterday. 4-0 defeat at Newcastle.